All right. Welcome to today's Advent reflection and meditation. So, the topic is do not let your heart be troubled. It's interesting because that phrase itself is like a response to a heart that is already troubled. I know in this passage that's what it's pointing to, but in general, that's usually a response that comes when you're with someone and they are feeling troubled. So it's not as popularly taken to be a theme to put out there if you're free of feeling concerns and trouble that are affecting your heart. So with that, then there's a tonality to that that's worthy of just a moment of recognition. And that is, think back to a time, whether it was from another individual, whether it was through meditation or prayer or some experience, when you were troubled in some way and something was a messenger of this in a way that it wasn't dismissing it like we do in the Western culture, like get over it, wasn't dismissing it, but it was the tender, oh, please do not let your heart be troubled. In there is not a judgment, it's rather a reaching into, a reaching towards. Think about a time that has happened for you. We all have those times that happen for us. And think for a moment, if you've conjured up that memory, what was the messenger? How did it come to you? Was there a knowing without words? Was there a human being that said something? Did something happen in nature? Did you move into a certain state through meditation? Was a prayer answered? Did you have an exchange that set you at ease? What was the messenger? The messenger is always, and somehow an interface in this created world. So even if you heard the word of God within your being, you heard an angel or any kind of spiritual being speak to you, it's still speaking to you through the energetic of your own cells. And what that means is that in that moment, there's a sublime mingling, commingling of what we might call heaven and earth, transcendent and immanent, created and uncreated. And I believe that's what we have here in this phrase. Jesus is saying it. It's in the Gospel of John, chapter 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. So first, Jesus is pointing to something in these words. His friends are upset. He's reminding them that they have a great power and that they believe in a providential, covenantal God. And then he adds, you can also find release for your heart by what? By believing in me. And I don't want to take this opportunity to look more deeply at what the passage is about. So if we play with the historical possibility that there was a Last Supper, and at that Last Supper, before Jesus died, these discourses happened. And they happened because his friends were aware something terrible was going to happen, and they're upset. And they're looking for consolation, and their faith in God or in God's will or in a covenantal God is not enough. Jesus gives them an extra reason to be at rest. Now, that's a whole nother topic. But what is a great opportunity here is to take it to the 3 questions that I put in the newsletter. What do you carry on your heart that troubles you? And if you have absolutely nothing that troubles you, what is something that has troubled you in the past month? And the first question is, how do you let yourself be held in this vulnerable place? And the second question is, what gives you comfort? So the first is, what do you do for yourself? And then it's involved into the second, but the second is also some secondary support. What gives you comfort? And in this phrase of John's gospel, what I believe is being pointed to is what I just mentioned, that when we experience consolation that lightens the loads in our heart, there's an intermingling of what is uncreated and what is created. There's truly a mingling, because we as created beings process, receive, and give all that arises within us. So even if we have, let's see, we're not even talking about spirituality, even if we have a great idea that comes from nowhere, and we can truly say, oh, that came from nowhere, it still came within us. There is still an interfacing within us for us to even know what the idea is. Something in the mind is grasping it, something in the cells, something in the emotion. And what I'm inviting us to do today is to notice that with this dance and this phrase, you believe in God, believe also in me, that was perfect consolation there. Whether they were able to do it or not is another story. For us, we can pull that out and say, okay, I do have a solidity in my spirituality that offers me resource and support. And within that, there are still moments that my heart is troubled. What additionally offers me comfort? And that is the twofold. What is additional that comes in a creative way, like a friend holding me if I need to weep, like reading a passage in a book that answers something that really needed answer. In this inquiry right now with Awakening Anew, it could be good if you had time to visit the answer to that question. What tends to be a way that I am supported in addition to what is my main current of spirituality that is always offering me support? And if you're finding yourself bereft or in need of additional support, what are options that you can give to yourself? Because we need that. You need that. That is what we call self-care. That is what we call self-care. Now, secondarily, with that, I go back to that second question. How do you let yourself be vulnerable? We are not oftentimes taught that skill to stay in the vulnerable place where our hearts are troubled. How do you do that for yourself? And do you do that for yourself? Or do you continually kind of whoosh, move right into observation of it, analysis of it, anecdotes towards it, practices? What does it look like to stay vulnerable in the heart? What has been an unfortunate limitation is that in the realms of spirituality over the thousands of years that we've been handed practices down, where we're taught to doubt ourselves or hold ourselves in a place of observation so that we're not consumed or over-identify with what isn't truly ourselves. There's wisdom there, but in that process, what is oftentimes thrown out the baby with the bathwater is the vulnerable place of the heart. So even if we were to recognize that there's an overreaction happening within us, or we're triggered, or we're not seeing things clearly, with all of that, that we may recognize, how do we simultaneously stay in the heart? Stay there with the part of ourselves that needs to be vulnerable and to be heard and to be seen. What's a practice that's alive for you today, or a disposition? For me, one thing that I do is I turn directly into it. So if my heart is troubled, I will go directly into all of the sensations of it, into all of the content of it, not with my mind, but with my presence, and then stay there in it, feeling everything, letting the thoughts run, being present with it. This is so important. It's so vital to allow your heart to have space to feel, to be heard, and to be seen, and to get in touch more and more with what your process is for that. I find even in my ministry, it is rare that an individual will stay in that delicate of a spot. Maybe there'll be like a quick dip in, and then whew, they're out into the place of observation or assimilation or integration or inquiry. But what about staying with the rawness? It evokes the fears that maybe we'll lose ourselves there because it's so dramatic. But you will find that the more you do that, the more you just stay right with it, it has an organizing principle towards wholeness and transformation, that you won't be lost, and in fact, you'll move more swiftly to your end. So with that, I would like to bring into our meditation time today a Sikh chant. So Sikh is a lineage we have not drawn upon. However, you will find many of those chants very, very similar to other lineages and traditions. And this one is two words, if you will, though you might hear it as 3 syllables. Ong, O-N-G, Ong So Hung, H-U-N-G, Ong So Hung. What's powerful about a lot of Sikh chants is that NG at the end of many words, it causes a vibration to move through the body. It doesn't stop dead in its tracks. It's almost a bit like if you were to pluck strings on an instrument and you could hear the string vibrating for a bit. Ong So Hung, Ong So Hung. And we have done a Tibetan chant that's very similar, but it has a very similar meaning as well. Ong, O-N-G, Ong, is the creative consciousness of the universe. And So Hung is I am that. So the Tibetan one that we've done is I am that. Just that. But it draws upon the creative consciousness. Now, this particular Sikh chant is all about opening the heart. It works to do the dance that the phrase from Jesus points to with the uncreated. You believe in God, created, believe also in me. The uncreated, you have a current of spirituality that sustains you, that's beyond words. And the created, you have messengers that you interface with that offer light and support. We get this dance. We've got it right here in this too. We've got the creative consciousness, the ineffable, And we've got the interface. And what's the interface? The messenger here? It's you in your very body, in your very being. I am that. The creative consciousness of the universe, I am that. So this is specifically geared to point to the reality that each of us is part of the creative consciousness. And as we repeat it, we enhance and we reinforce this power of the I am that. But it, in a practical way with the chakras, it stimulates and opens the heart chakra. So I thought it would be good for today. And we are, yes, I'm going to use my mala on this. We are going to do all 108 because it's 3 simple syllables. And we should be able to move through them with great power. So it's Ong So Hung. And we are just going to chant it all on one syllable. Ong So Hung. When we've done the Tibetan, we've done a 3-1-3 count, and we'll do that here. Ong So Hung. The emphasis is on the NG. Ong So Hung. Ong So Hung. Great. All right, so I invite you to close your eyes. And bring your awareness to the heart and to anything that you may be carrying there, any trouble or concern, grief, dis-ease, anything. Right. Inviting in a breath, we begin our first round of this mantra. Ong So Hung. 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 We breathe as the mantra begins and continues to reverberate through ourselves. Invite in a breath. Again, Ong So Hung. Ong So Hung. Ong So Hung. Ang 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 so hung. Inviting a breath. Ang so hung. 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 Invite in a breath for one more round. Ang so hung. 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 And breathe fully. Notice the changes within yourself. And let a smile form upon your lips. And invite in your own way in silence this mantra to continue sounding within you for the rest of the day. And when you are ready, very gently open your eyes. Once again, great to be with you. I will see you tomorrow, everyone. Blessings.